Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Brenda Thine and Sandy Glaze, our Friday morning chats. Today is Friday, February the 11th, 2022. And the topic we want to discuss today is the concept in the word trust. So with that, hi, Brenda, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, Sandy. Thank you. And you?
Yeah, I'm all right too. Lots going on. I'm having trouble staying focused. I'm being distracted with everything that's going on around what's going on in Ottawa and some of the shenanigans. But it was interesting that we talk about trust, and then I'm watching some stunts being pulled down there, and we're realizing, and as we've said, trust is a two-way street. And do people deserve your trust? Is a big part of, we trust people because we're told to trust the experts, trust the science. You know what I mean? We're told to trust everybody else but ourselves, but are they worthy of our trust? Is what a big one's coming in, right? What was the other one? Trust the medicine, trust the science, trust the politicians. Do they have your best interest at heart? Yeah. So did you want to start about trust, or do you want to, do you want me to share a little bit about what I'm hearing is happening in Ottawa? So last week we were talking about the police. We'd heard good reports about what the police were doing in Ottawa. Well, apparently, as no good deed goes unpunished, they were told they could no longer do that. And they had taken the gasoline cans. They took the fuel from the trucks, which the truckers need fuel to keep their rigs warm. So those rigs are insulated. You can get an insulated camper, like a motorhome. You can get like a trailer that you pull behind a vehicle. You can get winterized motorhomes. These trucks are insulated. Often these truckers are sleeping in their rigs, but they have their families. And now what they're saying is they're taking the fuel away, but they're saying that the children are at risk. So they're threatening to bring Children's Aid Society in. This is what they're doing. So I don't quite know what happened, but then a judge turned around and said, no, you've got to return the gas. Well, a few of them figured out they were putting water and sugar in the gasoline. Like, these are just dirty deeds. And then after they had returned the gas, the next night you see them going and taking firewood from somebody who's using firewood to stay warm. They've breached our trust, is what I'm saying. Absolutely. Right? So now they're bringing the convoy to Toronto this weekend because they're threatening the protesters with jail time, and they say they're bringing all these police in from other states. So when do we start saying that we no longer, it's like an abusive relationship. How many times does somebody have to hurt you before you say, I no longer trust you? You have not earned my trust. You are not worthy of my trust. You are not worthy of me putting my well-being in your hands, because the examples I'm watching you, the behavior you're displaying, is not trustworthy. So it's just kind of interesting to watch this turn of events. And I really find another aspect interesting. I think we have to level a playing field here. And what I was going to say on that is, for these police, this is just your job, but it's other people's lives is your job to destroy. Like, there's a lack of conscience that people are not able to access their own conscience and discern right from wrong. And I know some of them are struggling. They say it's that they don't like what they're being told to do. Too bad, you're still doing it, which means you're doing the minions, the dirty work of the politicians. You don't work for the politicians, you work for the people. So it's just an interesting dynamic that I'm finding, that they give these people the guns, they give them the brute force. We're seeing now, I don't know how many people they had come into Ottawa and they had red hats on, and the first couple were in police uniforms, and then you see the ones coming in behind weren't. These people were so out of shape. You could see, like, just they were sloppy. They weren't police, but who are they hiring to come in and pretend they're the police? So we have to start questioning, do people have your best judgment? Do people have your best interest at heart? Are they capable of using good judgment to know right from wrong? Why do we assume that this is such a beautiful country when we're watching the shenanigans that are being played? So this is where trust is so important. And that's, in my book that I wrote and published, Ending Global Loneliness, I talk about courtship and relationships. The purpose of courtship in a romantic relationship is so the woman who will be bearing the children for 18, 20 years, the purpose of courtship is so you can trust that person. They will have your back at different times so that you can have a trusting relationship and create a union with trust in it. Are we having that union within the police forces that we're exhibiting right now? Canada has 14 police academies. You can be a convicted felon and attend and graduate from police academy. Do we honestly think that is a faux pas, or do you think it's intentional? So we have to start questioning everybody, and they give these guys the guns and the utmost authority. And I watched a cop arrest an 80-year-old man, and he told him honking the horn was against the law. And when he was questioned about it, he goes, I wrote it down. And it's like, where did you write it down? In your roll call this morning because your sergeant told you that? Like, you know, like at what point is taking orders violate the trust of the people? So I have a feeling that we're looking at the dismantling of an entire system because we've lost the
Absolutely.
trust. Yeah.
And I think we needed to see that it was broken, you know, among other systems, many systems, the education system, the financial system, all of it, the medical system, everything is broken. And then we didn't really realize it because we've been band-aiding it together and keeping it together, using our own sweat and bubble gum to keep it there, you know, and here it is. It's got to come apart. Otherwise you can't rebuild, you can't reform, you can't do it if it's still standing structure. So it's got to come down. And yeah, absolutely. Trusting in the wrong places is
detrimental to your well-being.
I don't understand how an educator in this day and age can honestly think that they're teaching children valuable information. Like I just don't see it. How does that happen? And I know a lot of teachers. I have lots of clients who are teachers, and it's not an issue in that. It's just that you can see that it's just not the same as it used to be. There's no substance to the teaching that they used to have, and it's been taken away from them. So they had to learn to adapt to that. And now you can't expect them to bring it back because they don't have the authority to do so. So there's a lot of trust issues, right? I mean, because quite frankly, when I drove school bus, the moment those children got on that school bus, they were my responsibility. They were no longer the parents' care, they were mine. I delivered them to the school where they became the school's custodians of the children, became the school, right? So, and that's why now they're also playing that angle, right? Once your child is in that class or in that school or on the property, you don't have say over them anymore. Yeah. You've entrusted that child to a public system to be taken care of.
Who created that? Who created those rules within the education system that they have more say than the parents over the well-being of their children? And I know that the teachers will find one example of a parent that maybe doesn't make a great decision or a good call, and they'll use that as the norm to say, this is why we have to do it. You know, it's the classic example of the exception becoming the rule for everybody, or the tail wagging the dog. You know, so like that's how it works, right? So that they can justify their insanity. And the teachers right now, like, how do they not know what they don't know? And you listen to a teacher tell you what they teach the children, they honestly believe that they're teaching the right thing, because that would go against their professional ego to sit here and say, I'm teaching absolute garbage to the children. They're not getting any life skills. They're not getting the math that they need, or the true science. They're not getting how to discern for themselves. They're just following orders. When do the teachers have a crisis in confidence in their own ability and their own systems? And it's interesting when you said imploding, because the police have to implode the police. Education has to implode education. And yes, we have a role to play, because we're going to stop having confidence in them. They all get a no confidence vote, as far as I'm concerned. The medical system, for the people that are dying in the hospital on these ventilators, like, at what point do we start saying that either you're getting off on killing these people, it's intentional, you know, you're lying. Some of the nursing staff, they've come out even on my social media feed and said, well, we're told we can't go on the COVID floor. Really? And you didn't ask any questions? So there's a discernment that's lacking even within the system itself. But we trusted that Canada, the wonderful country that we are, that everything was all tickety-boo and running the way it was supposed to. And there isn't a system in Canada that's not fraudulent if it has any connection to the government. So what do we do within these structures? One, we just let them fall away. Two, people are protesting. And, you know, it's interesting because I just watched a video this morning where the police went in and they have tents, like awnings with food underneath it. They're taking all of that away off the streets for the free food. So we're not allowed to feed the homeless, but homelessness is a problem. We've got to address it. But then when we feed the homeless, even, they say you can't do that. How many settlements have police gone and just destroyed the tent cities that are coming up? They're coming up because people are living in poverty, because there's not enough money, because they're getting taxed right out of their homes, because there's always a new tax coming in, right? Look at gas, almost $1.60 now. And I'm told some of that is the carbon tax. So when do we say get out? So it's interesting because I'm being told that Mark Carney, who was the Bank of Canada, the head of Bank of Canada, and they went over to the UK as the head of the Bank of England, is now coming back to Canada, and he's going to run for prime minister, but because he's so financially savvy, that he's going to be a good choice. Guess who he's cousins with? Justin Trudeau, through the half-brother, the Kempers. It's like, so do we trust that they're not going to try to still screw to the people and still play their games? So it's just kind of interesting how all of this nonsense coming out. When do we have a no confidence vote in some of the liars, the professional liars, whether it doesn't matter what industry they're in, media, politics, they lie for a living. When do we lose trust in some of these people and just say, no, I don't answer to you. We have no contract. I do not stand under you. Yeah, I think so too.
It's happening. CTV, I saw an article about CTV where they're taking the decals off their car because they don't want to be seen. They need to be quiet about who they are because nobody trusts the media anymore. People don't want to go to the hospital or to see a doctor right now because they don't trust them. Like it is, that is huge and it's rampant everywhere we go, right? And that's the key, because we've been taught not to trust ourselves and to trust everything else. Don't trust you. You don't know anything. You're stupid, you're dense, you're dumb, you're dulled down, whatever, you're incompetent. You don't know. You just let us take care of everything. You know, like it gets me. The whole, even the education system, like you said, I mean, the curriculum has changed. Everything has shifted. It went from critical thinking to copy and paste. It's ridiculous. And, you know, I mean, the whole thing, again, you're trusting these people to rear your children, to teach them what they need to know so they go out in the world and be productive citizens of society, you know, and it gets me because they're precious cargo. You know, I used to work for stock transportation. Right on the bus, it says carrying precious cargo. That's exactly what we're talking about here. And I think that's interesting because once again, it comes back to commerce law. It's all about merchants. It's all about contracts, agreements, bullshit that you put your trust in them to conduct business in an appropriate and ethical way, and they're not anywhere.
Not. Yeah. And you can't call them on it. This is what I'm finding really funny, because I'm calling people out on their opinions about certain things and they're getting mad because their professional egos are getting bruised. And I'm like, I don't care. I don't care if you're a sociopath who created a system, you're an enabler who feeds the system, like these police who are just taking things down, just doing my job. Yeah, it's illegal to honk your horn now. And they give you the guns. Are we out of our minds for trusting these people? There's no way for you to discern in a short period of time that these people have the ethical, as you're talking about, or the moral fiber to do the right thing. Why is their ego so out of whack that they think they're above the people who pay their salaries? So we start looking at the trust. I like how you said that, you know, and I talk a lot about that too, is learning to trust yourself. And that's where a lot of the work I do, like I always call myself a facilitator. I'll go in and read and I'll say, do you know what this means? And I'll ask the person what it is, you know, whatever the intuitive hit comes in, and I'll ask the person what it means. But it's interesting because I always, and if I work with somebody who's not 100% confident in themselves, I snap out the question, who do you trust more, you or me? And they look at me, but they're taught to give their power away. So they want to, oh, you're the one coaching me. And it's like, no. You trust you to trust me for certain things, as you trust somebody else for certain things. But it's always about learning to trust yourself. And we are a broken society, but we didn't get broken on our own. We've been knocked down, we've been ridiculed, we've been minimized, we've been told we're stupid, as you're saying, we've been brought down to the very, not a shell of a person, but for some people who are sensitive or did not have proper supports around them, that those words would have landed on them. And that's like the Wernicke codes. When you work with the Wernicke codes, basically you have to go in and say all the rude things that were said to you, and you say them again and you clear them in the moment, but you say them as your body heard them. You're so stupid, or whatever somebody said to you. But it's interesting. But like I, you know, I'm a firm believer, people didn't get knocked down on their own, and we can help each other stand up, but not everybody wants to stand up. So we still want to honor the free will. But it's always about trusting yourself. But it's interesting because after I asked that question a couple of times, and sometimes people have been hurt really bad, right? So they don't trust themselves because they don't want you trusting themselves. So you have to go to the expert, you have to go to the science, you have to go to the academics, you have to go to the medicine because you don't trust yourself because you're told you're stupid. And when all of that starts to change again, and like I said, I might ask that 2-3 weeks in a row, do you trust more, you or me? And usually by the second or third time, they're like, I trust me. And it's like, right on. So you really help build that confidence back in. But if we all start trusting ourselves and not wagging our finger, telling everybody else what to do, I'm not for that at all. But I really find it interesting when people start to gain their confidence back. That's what trust does for a person. You start to be confident in who you are again. You start to realize that, no, you have the right to have healthy self-esteem. You start to realize when other people are trying to manipulate or put one past you. So the example would be Mark Carney is basically related to a Trudeau, which is a Sinclair, which is Margaret Trudeau, which is one of the top bloodlines. Of course, they're still going to try to be in charge. But the beauty of when you trust yourself, you're starting to see these patterns unfold in real time. That's when you start to get ahead of them. And that's what I see anyway. So I know everybody can see it differently, right? But that's what I see. But the purpose of trusting ourselves is so that we don't get fooled again and again and again. And that's the role of evil, to dupe us, to make us do things that aren't in our best interest, right?
Takes us back to that old saying, right? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I should know better. I need to be watching for people like you because you're all a bunch of fucking crooks.
They are, right?
But in all fairness too, right? I mean, we really have to stop giving that to everybody else. That just because they have a letter after their name or a couple or 3 or 10 or whatever, that doesn't make them confident.
No,
right?
it doesn't.
You want incompetence, and that's key. I mean, I just called the Governor General's office, like thousands of other Canadians, put a vote in of no confidence with my premier or my prime minister. Not happy about that at all. Called up the RCMP and reported him for hate speech. I mean, I'm like, because you got to take action. They go, oh, you can't do that. You're fucking right, I did. Sure as hell can. I will, and I do.
So the Governor General supposedly has been, so she's been diagnosed with COVID. So all the Governor Generals, Michael Jean, Adrian Clarkson, David Johnson, they've all been connected to the pedophilia and the human trafficking. So the Governor General's answer to the Queen. No surprise there. So she's got COVID. I can't remember her name. So we won't be surprised if she dies of certain things, if she's going to be executed. So it's just, so it's still great that you called. It's fantastic that you still call and put in a no confidence. I'm listening, somebody just sent me a recording on Facebook this morning, and it was this man who calls into Chilliwack police and says, I'd like to report a missing person. And she goes, one moment, please, and puts him over to whoever he's supposed to be speaking with. And he says, I think it was a woman asked, well, who's missing? And he goes, Justin Trudeau. Why are you calling us? Like, like, so they don't even, they can't think outside their box. We can't do anything about this. So they are trained to think inside their own box. Even the people who answer the 911 calls, there's no guarantee that you're talking to anybody with 2 brain cells. I remember one time watching a vehicle, it was around Christmas time, and it was all over both sides of the road. And I was following it for like a couple, like, what do you call, a mile and a quarter, it's like country roads. So it's like 2.5 miles I was following them. And I called 911 and reported it. Do you know what she said to me? What do you want me to do about it? What are we paying you for? Oh, but call the police, tell them when anything is wrong. And then you get some stupid honey answering the phone. What do you want me to do about it? I won't tell you where she can put her phone, but we're getting to the point that we're not tolerating incompetence anymore. And that even can take us into self-love. When you love yourself enough, you don't tolerate other people's bullshit. You don't tolerate their stupidity. You don't tolerate their ignorance. You don't tolerate their indifference. You don't tolerate their shaming techniques or their power plays, because there's a lot of egos. Again, as people are speaking up, they don't want to change their way of thinking because they think they're awake to whatever degree we're awake, 1%, 10%, it's irrelevant. It's a process. It's the growth process that's important, in my opinion, right? So do you have any tips for anybody on ways they can trust themselves or how to feel it inside their body?
Well, trust is a spiritual muscle. In my belief system, I believe that trust and faith and belief, these are spiritual muscles that we have to develop. They're often just underdeveloped, right? They're just not developed enough or not developed at all or whatnot. And, allowing yourself to make small decisions for yourself that you can kind of, okay, so it didn't work out. It's not the biggest deal in the world. It's not the end of the world, blah, 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 all of those things, right? Like start with small things because it's really important for us to build. You have to build. You can't just decide you're going to run a mile and trust in the biggest things ever when you've never done it. That's a huge undertaking in a lot of ways. People trusting the process. That's the biggest thing I think for people, right? Trusting that things are going to work themselves out. Most people don't believe that. They prepare for the worst, right? They expect the worst, so they prepare for the worst, and then they pray for the best. I say, just put it out there what you want and create what you need, right? Create what you want from it. Because it is all about that opportunity. But it does come back to believing in ourselves, recognizing, and accentuating the positive parts. So looking back on your life, acknowledging those times where you did trust and it worked out. You trusted yourself and it worked out, or you trusted that you weren't supposed to do something and that worked out, or whatever. But little bits at a time. You really do. Baby steps all the time.
And I
Spiritual
agree with
awakening is the
that.
same.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with that too.
And I would say, baby steps all along, and I would pull back because I just know one of these days someone's going to club me. I just know they're tired of hearing me tell them that, but you got to take it in baby steps. You cannot just take that giant doozy stuff all the time and be okay all the time. Sometimes it works out.
Yeah, especially with anything energetically, it's the same as energy clearing. If you had a lot of trauma in your life and a lot of pain and suffering, you don't go for your biggest trauma to clear first. You clear out the little things so you can start to feel what it feels like to have your energy and your frequency up a little bit, and you're back in more in positive territory, that you go baby steps. Because if you're doing the clearing, you might be on the sofa for an hour, you might be on there for a day, you could be crying for a couple of days depending on the release. It's interesting. So something you said just brought something to mind for me. You used the word belief. Kathleen Wynne passed in 2017. Your beliefs can have you labeled as mentally ill. So you have Guy Brummel, Agent Margaritaville, who's in a jail because he's come out and called out the pedophilia in Children's Aid Society. They've taken his daughter, and there's supposedly some technology he's created. So they put him in jail, and then they put him in a 3-month stint in a mental health facility because he believes Justin Trudeau is a pedophile. And they're going to lock him up until he changes that belief. He's got mental illness based on the belief. So this is where the trust comes in. Do you trust these monkeys to tell you what your beliefs are? So what they're encouraging. So do you notice when these people lack the ability to do the fiduciary duty? Isn't it funny? Because we look at trust, we don't look at the emotional aspect of trust, but we look at financial trust. This is the way we always look at trust, as if there's a monetary gain to them. But these people have a fiduciary duty to do the right thing for the people that are entrusted in their care, but they're not, because they don't show the playbook. So they've all got their little book of information with their little rules, but they don't tell you what the rules are, but they sit there and judge you to see if they can find where you fit in their little book so that they can go and put you into whatever system, and they've done their job. How's that for narcissists or like a distorted ego? So basically, if you have a belief that your government is psychopathic and they're trying to kill you based with this jab, that's grounds for them to lock you up, because you have a belief. Instead, you're to say, with the extensive amount of research I've done, I'm starting to draw the conclusion that, so we've got to say it in a certain way so they don't lock you up. Like this whole system needs to fall down. We need to stop paying their salaries. But can you imagine if you have a belief? You can believe in Santa Claus. I think we've talked about this before. You can believe in the Easter Bunny. You can believe in all these little fairy tales, Cinderella stories. You can believe in what keeps you as an infant, infanticide, right? I don't know if that's the right word, but keeping us as little boys and girls, emotionally, mentally. You can believe in all those things, but you can't believe that there's a nefarious agenda going on because they can lock you up. Like, it's just silliness, right? Like, the system is silly. It is absolutely embarrassing. What's that?
Right? Yeah. They're unacceptable views.
So basically that's what mental illness is. So as we're watching all this collapse, when we talk about trust, here's even another tip that we can give. When we know in your mind, you might not know where everything's at. I don't profess to know everything, not even close, but I ask to be shown the truth. I ask for the truth to come out about people's agendas and their intentions. And this is part of our waking up process, that we're going to start seeing people's intentions and agendas before they start lying to us. We're gonna right off the bat. And when you talk about trust, I always like people to go inside their body, feel it in your body. Don't feel it up here. Feel what feels right for you. When you're in fear, sometimes the blood comes out of your forehead and it goes into your extremities, because you know you might have to go into running to get away. But feel what fear feels like. Instead, we get told, we don't live in a world with polar bears and tigers anymore. There's nothing to fear. That's what we get told by certain disciplines. That's not true. There's all kinds of different types of harms that can cross a person's path that they need to be aware of, whether it's a financial harm, emotional, mental, spiritual, physical, whatever it is, right? So, but it's just we've been lied to. We've been lied to on every front of humanity in the Western world, but we all told that we've got the most amazing world. So our own egos have been stroked. Canadians are the best people. You know how many people tell me that Canadians are nicer than Americans? Really? That's a pretty arrogant statement. How do you know every American out there? I've had many people tell me, but that's their ego being stroked. Oh, I'm better than that person. Division. Why would anybody trust they have that they're accurate in the thinking? You know, so we've talked about questioning everything, right? But it's just interesting to see what's going on right now. And what I'm finding is really funny in some ways is all the borders, all the bridges, even the US trucks are blocking them right now.
So Ford just came out an hour ago and declared a state of emergency here in Ontario because of that. Did you hear that yet?
No, but of course they are. So they're going to blame the people who are standing up, right? That's just the way it is. And we live in an abusive society. They say, speak up, don't take abuse, except for when your government does it.
Exactly, right. So that makes me laugh because now, because of the state of emergency, you know, there's certain provisions we actually employ and implement now, right? That cause us more trouble, more grief. Interestingly enough, I watched a little clip, Candace Owens, you know, that wonderful woman. I don't know. I think she used to be I don't know if she's a journalist or what. To be honest with you, I can't.
Yeah, she has her own podcast show, and I believe she might be in government, whether she's in Congress or not. I think she could be a politician in the United States as well.
I think she might have been speaker, you know, like press, what do you call that? Press, White House speaker, whatever, like that. Jen Psaki.
Oh.
I think she might have had, I don't really know for sure, and I shouldn't probably say, but a little thing with Dr. Malone. And she said, this was absolutely fascinating because it's exactly what we've been talking about, right? Where if you were to say to somebody, you know, I'm in this relationship right now, they don't want me to leave the house. I'm not allowed to associate with my family. I'm not allowed to hug anybody. I'm not allowed to go here, do this. I'm only allowed to do this, this, and this. I'm not allowed to say things. What would you say about that? And that's completely a relationship. You'd say, get the hell out of that relationship. But what do you do when it's your government doing it to you? What do you do when you're subjected to that absolute emotional, mental, psychological, and even financial abuse, right? Because the closing of the border, like Trudeau in his infinite wisdom says something so freaking stupid and asinine, like to the effect of, you know, well, the truckers are blocking the economy and shutting everything down and stopping everybody from their livelihoods. Buddy, you just did that for 2 fucking years to the rest of the country. You're telling about it now, honestly. So that whole, you know, it's that twisting, right?
Double speak.
How trust somebody who takes your trust and twists it around and inverts it, right? We're back to the inversion part.
That's the psychopathy. We live in a sociopathic society. That is the inversion, that they turn and twist everything around. So if you speak up, they twist it around that you're the reason I hurt you. If you hadn't done that, I wouldn't have hurt you. So if you hadn't stood up for yourself and blocked the bridge, I wouldn't have had to shut down the province. It's your fault. This is the psychopathy of the modern Western mind when it's not connected to a heart. And I know a lot of people talk heart and blah, 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 right? Because they can say the word heart or spell the word heart. Doesn't mean they're coming from their heart. They're just talking, right? But my point is they always have to twist it back. It's your fault I hurt you. If you hadn't done that, I wouldn't have had to do this to you. So this is the psychopathic society, but people were so busy living their lives that they didn't see the system itself is designed this way. The other thing is the enabling. I'm cruising a lot of people out here right now on social media, the people, and a lot of them are women who justify everything in our system, how great it all is. But they're out there on sites, on maybe feeds with somebody who's standing up about the abuse, but they're saying, no, Revenue Canada is amazing. Oh, really? Let's talk about Revenue Canada. How many years have you got in finance? And I started throwing some ratios out and a few different things. She never got back. But I'm like, no, you want to pay them, you pay them. Basically, their job is to fuck you and try to find you doing something wrong so that they can have a good living. What if we stop paying tax? We don't have any of their jobs or pensions or salaries or benefits to pay. Corporations aren't paying tax because they want to keep you in the country so that we create jobs. So everything is just, it's time to question everything. But when you trust yourself, you know, you can go into those zones, because I'm not attached to an outcome. I don't know what the answer is going to be, but I know the questions to ask to get the conversation rolling of why are we in such a prison planet when the system is designed to capture everybody. So Doug Ford, it's interesting, the convoy, lots of controversy over that. People can decide for themselves what they think. A lot of people are attacking Pat King. It's easier to attack somebody who has no intention of causing you pain than it is to go after the psychopaths like Ford or Harper or Trudeau. So people sit there and they go after and they start taking shots at all the people who are leading the convoy. Well, they've just come out and said that they're leaving Ottawa because they're getting threatened to be put in jail. So they're moving and they're like, oh, look, we've got no leadership. You're just sitting there behind your computer, clicking your phone, putting down the people who are standing up, but you haven't got the balls to go after the true criminals within our countries. And I know there's, you know, some people will say, well, these are just puppet figureheads. It doesn't matter. They're the ones that we see. You take them out, then you watch to see who they replace them with. Same as Mark Carney, if he's really a Trudeau, connected to Trudeau. You know what I mean? So we are getting to the point that we are calling this out, but we're starting to even see who the cowards are, who are going after the people who stand up and not after the people who are causing the pain. So Ford has broken a lot of promises with the sex ed curriculum, getting rid of that. He's a lying little piece of crap is what he is. He has no problem going from 3 million to 57 million in 2 years in government, and no alarm bells going off in Revenue Canada's head. Why are we paying and why are we believing in a structure? So maybe this is how we turn it on mental health. We don't believe anymore. We don't believe in the system. Like, you know, if they're going to use the word belief against you, turn it, flip it, invert it back on them. We don't believe in you anymore. We don't believe in the system anymore. We don't believe in politics anymore. We need some structure, but not the structure that, yeah, we have.
Absolutely. And I, you know, and I think that really, I think that they attack the word belief literally because they know that the belief word and the action, the outcome of that is everything. Is everything. If you get one thing, it happens. The project looking glass, the probability machine, you throw all that stuff in to see what's going to come out. It's like a big old lucite bin, you know. They know if you get too many people believing the same thing,
our collective consciousness is going to, changes. So even the Bible, I don't quote the Bible, and people have to decide where they go for their information. But I think it's in Matthew 22:21. In all things ye ask for in prayer, believing, ye shall receive. So this is our true consciousness, that when we can get out of what we're seeing on the ground in the materialistic world, when we can get out there and believe that good things are happening and we are creating good things. And even if we want to destroy, destruction can be creative, especially if it's something that's not good at the current time. So an example would be taking out the government structure. We don't believe in you anymore. So we believe we can do something better. We believe we can create by all of us putting our minds together and coming up with a better plan. So like we can switch gears within the belief, but you're right about that. They understand the power of belief. So they say, you have a belief, you've got mental illness. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, these people are fucked.
It's part of the attack on God. It's part of the attack on nature. It's part of the attack on humans.
On humans, everything, life.
Power, right? Yeah, because every bit that is the power of our existence here, experience, whatever, that's why they attacked our pineal gland. That's why they've dumbed down, put those shit in the water and the air and all this other crap. Like, they know if they don't attack what makes us powerful, then we are powerful, and they aren't. And they just can't overpower us. Yeah. They have to dumb us down.
Yeah. So it's just so interesting. So you look at the people who work in Health Canada, when you look at the food guide, they say now a quarter of the food is to be grains, a quarter of your daily dietary intake, but they won't say that Roundup is cancerous. Like, there isn't anybody who works in any of these organizations who is 100% good. And some people might say, well, you're not 100% good. I'm not working for the taxpayers' dime. I'm not on the taxpayers' dime. But when you're working in these positions, you should be in a position of trust that you are going to do the right thing. It is the right thing to do. But we're not. It's in the media. It's everywhere, right? When you look at I always talk about this. I can't remember if I've said it recently, but in the U.S., it's estimated pre-flu, the CV-19, that 300,000 people die a year based on the medical system, and that's procedures going wrong and taking prescription drugs as prescribed. But they tell you to focus on the guns, 30,000. So everybody's like Pavlov's dog. They're waiting for the next command so that they can go and do the good little, I'm a good little boy, I'm a good little girl, and do whatever that they're told to do. And the next cause, Black Lives Matter. No, Baal Lucifer Moloch. It's a demonic spell, people. Wake up. LBGT. No, wait. Don't tell children to cut their genitals off. Cut yours off and lead by example. Do you know, like we don't question. People aren't questioning anything. So some people are going to think it's a good thing that the borders are shut down, that we're in emergency mode again, right? That's what they're going to think. But they're going to think the truckers are bad for being on the bridge, but they didn't have a problem with the borders being shut just because the politician said to shut it. So where's their own discernment and trusting themselves? And we're going to see who can make good decisions and trusting themselves to apply critical thinking. Doesn't mean we have to agree on everything. It's impossible. No two people agree on everything. But can people apply their own discernment and critical thinking? Like there was a woman on going on about Queen Dildoa on this thread again, and she made a comment about the Queen burned a Canadian flag at Parliament building. This Queen Dildoa burned this Canadian flag, and she brought out her flag. And this woman comes out and says, well, the Queen, she put it out here for everybody. You could have voted on the flag you wanted. And I'm like, who put her in charge that she gets to decide what goes on for every Canadian? She goes, I'm sorry you feel that way, Sandy, but you could have voted. And I'm like, are you on fucking crack? Don't contact me again. Like, she cannot discern logic. No, there's no proof this woman is a queen of anything. I don't answer to her. I don't have to answer, but I have to answer to her because you say she is. And then she turns around and says, well, I don't answer for everybody, but you're speaking for her. Like people cannot, honest to God, people cannot use discernment in even how they communicate or how they rationalize something. So it's okay. It's not okay that Trudeau says everybody has to get the jab, but it's okay that she says she's the queen. Like, why are the rules not consistent across the board? They cannot even see that. It's frustrating. I try not to engage too much because it's just, you just know you're going to stupid bill in a handbasket, right? Like really fast. But it's just the insanity of everybody thinking they know what to do for everybody else. And I keep coming back to that. Yeah, there are some collective rules we need, traffic lights and things like that, right? But there's an inability to critically think. How's everybody going to get out of this? I don't know.
And that Queen, whatever, Didillo or Dildo or whatever her name is.
Diddaloo or something, yeah.
Romana, that's her name. Romana Didulo. You know, we're not meant to have a monarchy either. We're not meant to have a government system, and we're not meant to have a monarchy. We're not meant to pay homage to anybody but God, period. Yes. And when you live in a sovereign way, when you are aware and you live in a way that understands oneness, you would never dream of hurting another. You would never allow yourself to be in a situation where you were hurt either, because you respect and love and see yourself as sacred, just as you would see everybody else around you as sacred. And to me, you don't need laws to tell you not to kill people when you live a life like that. You know damn well not to kill people. It doesn't even enter your mind. It just doesn't.
Interesting that you're bringing that up, because there's a man who's ex-RCMP who is now acting in the security and advising the security of the convoy. And he came out and said he's been hearing on good authority that there's going to be people that come in and try to infiltrate the protest movement. And he goes, if this happens, he goes, back away from them, get away from them, try to film them if you can, get away and tell a police officer. And I'm like, that's just your fucked up training. What if they don't want you to get away? So this is what people don't understand about the abuse side of it. Some of those people, once you grab somebody and corner them in, they can't get away. But why didn't he come out and say, anybody disrupting this peaceful protest, we are going to process you, charge you, and charge you to the fullest extent of the law. You do not cause problems. But nobody in our society ever says stop doing that. So he comes out, the voice of reason, and I'm like, no. So why don't we? So nobody ever comes out and says these behaviors constitute abuse. Don't do them. There is no standard in that regard, right? So we are on the honor system, but there's no guarantee that everybody's nice. So it's just interesting, just the programming. So he's a high level operative in security, or was within Canadian forces. It's not army. I think it was like RCMP and a local police force, but they still are programmed with whatever they're taught. Oh, the victim, get away, get away. So can you imagine us saying to Ford, everybody just back away from Ford, just back away, get his picture, report it to the police, who are going to say, what do you want me to do about it? Like, it's insane how stupid and infantile this situation is and the system is. So it's just, people just go in circles.
They do.
And until you figure it out.
They want us all dazed and confused.
Right.
That's why he legalized pot. He figured we'd all be so fucking stoned, none of us would be able to get off the couch and notice what he's doing. Well, I can tell you something. I'm a veteran. I fucking see through that shit.
We all do. And who would trust them not to spray chemicals on that to even cause them harm? Like, why would you trust them? What have they done to earn your trust? There's another great question. So ask, what have your government and all these institutions done to earn your trust? And make a list of all the entities and institutions that you've dealt with in your life. What have they done to earn your trust? Because trust is earned. It's a two-way street.
And as parents, okay, that's the first thing you teach your children. Respect and trust are earned. They are not just given because of who you are. Just not. And although we teach them to honor authority and to respect authority and to, appreciate the parental guidelines or the parental guidance, even at that,
if the parents are doing it lovingly, chances are the children are going to feel it anyways.
Parents who don't deserve trust and respect either, but you don't know, and you just don't give it willy-nilly just because that's what you've been taught, right? So again, we're trusting the wrong people. We're really trusting.
Yeah, I see that. And it's interesting because there's no literature anywhere that tells you how to create healthy families. And I'm still working on getting mine out. I'm having trouble finding editors because it's everybody has to throw their opinion in it. But it's interesting, but nobody tells you how to have healthy, loving relationships because they don't want you getting along. Because when we come from our heart, and this is what we're talking about using our collective consciousness in creating with our beliefs. Again, I know I've said this before, but my understanding, our higher heart, our immune system, that was originally our third eye when we're coming from this inner knowing from our heart-centered area. And that's what was to guide us. So we've been totally dumbed down into the third eye. Even it's okay, we can reverse it and do both or whatever that we do, right? To bring them both back online. But it's interesting. So nobody ever teaches you how to have a healthy relationship, just fuck for sport. Do you know what I mean? Just disregard your temple, do whatever, eat crap food, drink crap beverages, whatever it is. So it's stop trusting assholes. Isn't that what we would say if somebody kept choosing bad partners? Stop choosing assholes. Look at what your pattern is. Why are you choosing these people? So then why are we choosing a system that is so corrupt that it needs to come down? Why are we trusting them? And this is fantastic. We're having this conversation because we're putting it out here in the field. Trust yourself. Don't trust other people unless, especially if they haven't earned it or you're uncertain. You got that little nagging sense that you're not 100% sure. Don't trust me. I don't care who trusts me or who doesn't. That's up to them to make that discerning choice for themselves. But the idea is the goal is for them to trust themselves so that we all make good decisions and we can articulate why we're making decisions so that we can explain to others what our process is or what it is that we're trying to accomplish without telling other people what to do. Right?
Yeah. And I was just going to say something. I forgot what it is now, but I think that's critical, right? Like, absolutely. And I don't want to put it out there that we can't trust, right? Like, because understanding the laws of the universe says that if you trust, you're going to get trust back, right? Like, so there is that, but there's definitely
there's a lot of inversion. There's a lot of inversion going on. And I'm watching somebody, Ashiana Dean, and she's talking about how they've taken our energy and they invert it even into our shadow side that, you ask for something and you get the exact opposite. Some people have been attacked energetically. So I have to go back and I'm going to watch a little more of that and understand the concept. But some people, it does not work that way. And it's because I used to think it was just psychological reversal or they were in fight, flight, or freeze, but it's not. If something has happened, whether it's been a hex or a curse on them or something has happened to them, that their energy is backward and they're like, why do I always have bad luck? So there's something for us to go.
Because I truly believe once again, there's that word, that it is all about what you believe, what your predisposition for belief is there. Because if you truly believe that you're going to be screwed over all the time, naturally, those energies come to you to prove to you what you believe. Like that's the world.
So let's expand on that. So then what we talked this week, we're talking about cord cutting. And even though we talked about cord cutting, you had said that you're still attached to these people, then why are you cutting the cords? So there's a lot of things that we have to question, whether it's generational, ancestral. So I'm not saying I have it all figured out, but I know if you say you put something out there and the exact opposite happens, you might say it in the right energy that you want good things to happen, but then you notice it's not happening that way. That's an observation, which strengthens your inner muscle to see, am I being attacked? Is there an energy that is not mine, somebody's trying to project it onto me with a psychic attack? So it's all about discernment too, right? And I do appreciate where you're going with the positive. 100% I get it, but we're in the process of ripping down the old and creating the new at the same time. So sometimes you've got to go between both.
Absolutely. And it's chaos right now. Like everybody, I in readings, they'll say it's so uncertain. These times are so uncertain. And I'm like, yes, but the flip side, which we live in a duality, the polar side of that means that this is raw potential. That means that everything is possible.
Yes.
All possible. So it is about, and again, our belief pulls the molecules together, but we can have conflicting beliefs and we don't even know it. You can believe that you are truly meant to have great things in your life, but you have a belief of also that you're not meant to be a great person. So
you're
that's
not worthy.
There's a lot.
Lots of moving parts, right? But trust today is so important, trusting ourselves, because if you trust yourself, then you know who to trust for what for. And you can still use other services. I'm not mechanically inclined, like it's embarrassing. I am so not mechanically inclined. But I know I can trust the right people. If I need to look at something mechanical in my life, I can ask somebody's opinion or say, where should I go to get this? Or how do I look at this? Or what services should I employ to fix this? So I don't need to know it all, but I trust myself to know who to trust for what. And most times it's the right thing. My intuition's good that way, that I know what I don't know, but I know who will know. Right. So it's all good. But when we trust ourselves, I think we're going to bring this shit show to a halt faster, because we're not buying anymore. And when we're not buying, it's like when you see that one, you see all these people standing on the edge of a cliff and they're on a board. You've got the politician behind the podium and he's standing on the other edge of the cliff. And you're right. You see that you're not believing him and you step off the board and one more steps off the board and one more steps off the board and bye-bye. Do you know what I mean? So this is where energetically, that is how this is going to happen. We're just going to stop believing the lies and trusting in ourselves.
We're not playing their game anymore. And already, just in the last 4 or 5 days, Facebook, Zuckerberg has lost like $600 billion because people are not willing to play anymore.
I know. And it's becoming a ghost town.
Good.
Yeah.
The only reason is because everybody's there. But if everybody left the playground, we'd go somewhere else. There's lots of
Truth Social's coming out supposedly in February, so we're going to wait and see. But I think these changes as they happen, we're going to see other options, and we will decide. So I'm okay to stay on it. I'm not doing much on it, but I'm okay to stay there. And people still reach out, and I still communicate with people there. But it's okay to switch gears and decide we're going to change down the road. Nothing is static, right? So we're coming upon almost an hour, I think. We're almost an hour. So any last thoughts you want to share with people on trust? We've done a pretty good job with explaining it, I think.
I think so. And then just, watch, observe, feel it out. Just feel it out. If it do it. If it doesn't, don't. Just that feeling, that inner navigation system, that GPS, God's positioning sensor, that to me, that's your router, right? That picks up your signal either very clearly or it tells you, no, it's fuzzy, stay the hell away from that.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting, even your instincts, gut instincts, and so much is designed to attack our gut area, right? So we've got that gut instinct, but they're poisoning that with some of the food, and you look at all the diseases that are coming around there. So it's okay to question everything. And if you're not sure who you want to ask somebody a small question to see if they think you're nuts. And then you're not going to ask them anymore. But then call in like-minded people that can show you, hey, have you thought about this? Or do you want to look in this area? But people, you don't want people to tell you what to think unless they're being a real asshat and you really have to put a hammer down on it. If it's a really stupid thing that they're trying to pass off as normal. But you want people who want to tease you open, get you to question things on your own. That's how you're really going to develop your spiritual muscle, your trusting muscle, when you start asking these questions, right? So I'm hoping that's going to really help people stand in the truth that you know something's wrong. Now it's time to ask, just show me exactly what's wrong and in what areas of your life, because not everybody's touched by the same institutions, the same organizations. So one person might find something over here with the education system that's not right. Somebody might find something in the medical system that they're questioning. You know, all it needs to happen. We need everybody, all boots on the ground and all wings in the air, right? For
So,
sure.
let's send me a link too for that Ashiana Dean stuff you're watching.
Sure.
I got it. Anyway, I've seen most of the older stuff.
They're like 12 minutes long. They're not long. So they've just shortened them into those areas. So it's taken a bit for me to get my head around what she says. But I'm okay. I trust myself. If I have to watch it 2 times or 3 times to get it, I'll do that. Like, it doesn't mean I have to get it all the first time, but I trust myself that I'm going to watch it until I get it. And then I'll decide if I agree with it or don't agree with it, right? But I'll send you that. So Brenda, we're going to put all of our information in the description box and different ways that we can get a hold of you. I don't know if I ask, maybe I'll get you to give me all of your exact links, email them to me so I can just cut or copy and paste and put them in. And if anybody has any questions, by all means, you can reach out to Brenda or I, and let's get ourselves back on track with our personal spiritual growth, our ascension, understanding that the nonsense and all the lies so that we can make the changes we need to see in the world. So it's been great chatting.
You as well. Have a wonderful weekend.
You
We'll see you all
too.
next time.
Yes, see you next
Thank
week. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.